Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and I really wanted to talk my top 3 martial arts movies. And we got The Birth of the Dragon coming out here really soon, and I thought this is the perfect time to do it. But a dawning realization hit me that I can't just talk about this alone. I mean, how could I talk my top 3 martial arts movies without bringing in the biggest Jean-Claude Van Damme fan I know? Mr. Sean Chandler, how are you doing today?
I am doing good. Wow, the biggest Van Damme fan you know. I didn't realize I had such a lofty title.
Well, I know people that like Van Damme, but I don't know anybody that talks about Van Damme. And on your channel, you talk about Van Damme, and you have him in your cool little promos that you make. So, you know.
I do. My buddy did join me one time to shoot that promo via green screen, yes.
Well, Sean, tell us a little bit about your channel and where we can find you.
Yeah, my channel is called Sean Chandler Talks About. It's named after me, Sean Chandler, and I like to talk about movies. I rank movies, do a little bit of TV, do some book reviews, if they're Star Wars books for the most part. But I don't want to just talk about movies, TVs, and Star Wars books. I want to talk about movies, TVs, and Star Wars books with you in the comment section, and also like here in this video talking with Durbin. So if you check out my channel, please leave a comment. I'd love to get to know you.
Awesome, and definitely check out his channel and hit the subscribe button on that channel. His channel is growing like crazy, and it's awesome. So you'll go over there, you'll check it out, and you'll see exactly why. So today, as we talk about our top 3 martial arts movies, we're not just going to talk 3 martial arts movies each. We definitely have our honorable mentions. So I'll let Sean Chandler kick off his list of honorable mentions. I'll do my list, and then we'll get into our top 3 favorite martial arts movies. So Sean Chandler, go ahead and let us know your honorable mentions of your martial arts movies.
All right, well, so I told you I was only going to have 5 honorable mentions. I ended up with 7 honorable mentions because I came up with 10 movies. I don't even know how to rank and pick between all these sorts of deals, so I'm just listing off some movies. And one of the ways I sorted through them is I tried to think through what's the unique, cool thing in each kind of these different movies, of different genres, styles of martial arts and everything. So one, I got The Raid from a few years back. I actually haven't even watched The Raid 2 yet, but the first Raid uses Salat and just very cool, different, just absolutely brutal fights, just incredibly choreographed, so fast-paced, so fast-moving. Next one, I've got The Perfect Weapon. This is a movie that I have hardly run into anyone that's even heard of this movie. Early 90s martial arts action. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Early 90s martial arts action vehicle for a guy named Jeff Speakman, and he's using American Kenpo, and it's a lot of just real fast hand strikes and stuff. Just very unique martial arts style without, like, at first glance, you wouldn't think it's that different until you start paying attention. It's like just the nature of the hand strikes and everything. So very cool movie. Next one, maybe you've heard of this one. Have you heard of Only the Strong?
I have not seen it.
You haven't seen Only the Strong? So it's basically the movie Stand and Deliver about the inspirational teacher, except he's a master in capoeira, the dancing martial art. And the whole movie's about capoeira and the teacher teaching his students capoeira to try and teach them discipline and stuff. And then there's an evil capoeira meister in the city that's trying to have a gang full of people that know capoeira. It's way overly serious while being this very cheesy concept, which is about as early 90s as you can get. It's Mark Dacascos, who's done stuff on Iron Chef. He's done all sorts of acting over the martial arts acting over the last 20 years. Very talented guy. I was surprised he never got more successful. Same with Jeff Speakman, the guy from The Perfect Weapon, but Jeff Speakman really went nowhere. Mark Dacascos has definitely had a career over the last little bit. Not as big as I thought it was going to be. Next one, Above the Law. It's Steven Seagal's first movie, really more of an action crime film rather than a martial arts film, but he's using and showcases Aikido in it, his kind of martial arts of choice, and that's probably the movie where he is the youngest, so the best and most fluid in it. As his career progressed, he got much more into just action movie guy with guns and just throwing punches as he lost the ability to move like a martial artist. But early on in his career, I mean, especially Above the Law, just does some really cool stuff with Aikido. My final 3 are less about showcasing specific styles, but number 5, I've got and these aren't in any order, but number 5, I've got Rapid Fire. Have you happened to seen Rapid Fire?
See, this is why I brought you on, Sean, because I knew you would, like, get me excited about things I haven't seen.
Yeah, so Rapid Fire is probably... it's not probably, it's Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son's best martial arts movie. So he didn't do a ton of movies. His best movie would be The Crow, of course. But when it comes to just doing like a straight up action martial arts movie, it's rapid fire. And as you see it, he's got a very distinct style of his own, but it's actually a lot more Jackie Chan based than Bruce Lee based. And you can see the similarities to Bruce Lee, but like kind of the using the props and the stuff, and using the environment, the style of his fighting very much. And I think there was some interviews where he mentioned that is intentional, but certainly a very kind of cool, straightforward 90s martial arts action movie. Very distinct style to it. Next one I got, The Street Fighter from the 70s. Not the Van Damme 90s video game movie, but the one from the 70s. This is a Japanese martial arts movie, so the fighting style on it isn't kind of the Kung Fu Wing Chun based, it's karate based, and so it looks different. Very brutal, like comedically over the top violence. Stuff where like, well, there's a part where a guy tries to rape a girl and he rips the guy's manhood off.
Oh! Oh, that's brutal!
But, I mean, like, punches guys in the skull and their skull cracks in and they spit blood out. Super violent, but like the fighting style of it is very cool and interesting. You got to look this one up. There's all sorts of exciting stuff in it. Sonny Chiba, he's a guy that's appeared in all kinds of stuff since then, but The Street Fighter and its sequels in the 70s are the distinctive ones. And it's so brutal. You can probably like YouTube search like The Street Fighter most violent scenes. I think in the second one, there's a scene where he punches a guy in the back of the head and the guy's eyes pop out of the front of his skull. And then the final honorable mention on my list, the one that you've probably been waiting for, my Van Damme pick of the day, and that is going to be Bloodsport. Have you seen at least Bloodsport?
Oh, you know I've seen Bloodsport.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Just
yes.
checking.
Yes.
You didn't sound like you'd seen enough Van Damme movies. So Van Damme, this is kind of the quintessential Van Damme movie that showcases his kind of version of martial arts movies, the things that he's famous for, the splits, the spinning split kick, his style of acting, everything that's Van Damme was invented with this movie. He was in movies before this, obviously movies after this. It all started here. It's a tournament fighter, and what makes it kind of a special, like a tournament fighter that's uniquely interesting, is that every fighter in the movie has a different style. Whether that's barroom brawler American, karate, kung fu, all that stuff, and Van Damme dominating all of them. With his spinning kicks and split uppercut punches between the legs. So those are my runner-ups.
Those are good runner-ups, and you gave me a very good list of movies I need to go back and watch. So, getting into my honorable mentions here, Time Cop. I just really like Time Cop, you know, taking place, what, 93, 94, and then jumping into the faraway future of the year 2004 with self-driving cars and technology that we can never even imagine or think of. Wow, the wonders that 2004 might hold for us. Oh, I can't wait. But Jean-Claude Van Damme was pretty awesome in that movie, especially, you know, a couple split scenes where he jumps up on the counter and he does the splits to avoid the shock in the water and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, I don't know. He's got some great fights in Time Cop. And now my next couple are both Jackie Chan, and that's going to be kind of a pattern for me, reoccurring. I love Jackie Chan. So one of them is Shanghai Noon. I just love the way Jackie Chan does fights. Like, he does his whole fight scenes and he makes them like really fun. And they have the intensity of a great fight scene, but they also got a lot of fun comedic moments, like the bar fight in Shanghai Noon. And, you know, all those guys are trying to tackle him, and he grabs the moose antlers that are hanging up and uses the moose antlers as a weapon. I love that with Jackie Chan. Or the scene where he takes the horseshoe and he ties the rope around it, and he's out there with this horseshoe on a rope, and the way that he would fling that thing around and use that, like, that's something that I love about Jackie Chan, and I love how his fights get choreographed in whatever movie he does. Like, he just takes those goofy little things in his environments that you wouldn't think about, and he uses them in interesting ways. And so, I don't know. Shanghai Noon, always just one of those fun movies for me. And then the next one is Rumble in the Bronx. Did you see Rumble in the Bronx?
I used to have a Jackie Chan fan page on the internet back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So if it's a Jackie Chan movie, I I haven't seen all of them because he's done about 100, but I've seen a very, very high percentage. So any of the, you're going for a deep cut if you're talking about one of his 90s and 80s movies that I haven't seen.
And I think I found your fan page, because you had the fan page where it was the full body picture of Jackie Chan, and you click a body part, and if the clip was available, you saw the clip where he broke it in. Yep, that is hilarious. Then we have crossed paths long before YouTube, because I found that site and I loved that site. That was awesome.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I just didn't know that was Sean Chandler. That's awesome.
It's just possible I also ripped someone off too. So
it could be
it's possible. I had some viewership. I did see some happen, but yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and give you the credit. Whether you rip somebody off or not, whatever. It was your website that I found.
I ripped off the best.
That's right. Sean Chandler only rips off the very best. But Rumble in the Bronx, my gosh, I love that movie. So I don't know what else to say about it. That is just such a good one. Another one on my list is The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. And the reason I threw that in there is because there are several things that I liked about, you know, the fighting style they used in there and the way they did the samurai fighting. And I liked when Tom Cruise is just learning to live in that village, and, you know, he's learning their lifestyle, so he's trying to learn how to fight. And he can't fight. Like, no matter what he does, he can't beat them, and he's the kind of guy that doesn't give up, he doesn't surrender, and he keeps going at it, but he keeps getting more and more frustrated. And one of the guys runs up to him and is like, too many mind. Like, you're thinking too much. And so it's about his whole transformation of his mind until we finally reach this point where he's samurai fighting this dude, and he sits there and he looks at him and he plays out the fight in his head. And then he does the fight. And I just thought that was really, really cool. And then you see that repeat when he gets attacked by the gang when he goes back into the city. And so when the gang comes to attack him, he plays out the fight in his head, and then he acts out what he played out. So I thought, like, the way they would play things like that was really cool. On top of, I love character transformation movies, and watching this guy go from this raging, crazeball, alcoholic dude to learning how these people live their life and being humbled and then growing and then fighting with them and fighting for them. Like, I love those kind of transformation movies. And then lastly, on my honorable mentions, Ip Man 2 with Donnie Yen. Did you see Ip Man 2?
I haven't seen any of the Ip Man movies.
Those Ip Man movies are incredible. Not only do they have really good stories, but Donnie Yen, man, that dude could kick freaking butt. Choreography is amazing. It looks amazing. But the story and the heart that always leads up to why he's fighting, it gives it even more impact. So I'm a huge fan of those Ip Man movies, except for Ip Man 3. I didn't like that one that much. We've done our honorable mentions. Now it's time to get into our top 3 favorites. So Sean Chandler, let's kick it off with you. Number 3.
All right, number 3, I'll just go with the definitive, most legendary classic of the martial arts movies, Enter the Dragon. So this is the movie where finally the United States went, hey, let's give this Bruce Lee guy a chance. So it had some budget behind it and got to create this movie. It's a tournament fighter, so there's a showcase of martial arts, and it's kind of the cleanest of the Bruce Lee movies simply because it had the budget and the resources to be the cleanest of them. It's the one made for an American audience, thus the certain sensibilities are just there, and it's just perfect showcase for Bruce Lee and his speed, precision, his style of fighting, and just even some of the other little characters in it that kind of fill out this movie, just make it so interesting all along the way, who you're with. It's got Bolo Young, the guy that became the main villain in Bloodsport. He's in this movie as one of the guys that's a fighter and a pretty significant role in the movie. And just kind of throughout the whole movie, just little things about it that just make it interesting, make it such a product of the 70s while being enjoyable and watchable kind of endlessly as a, just a martial arts movie in and of itself.
Well, my number 3, Rush Hour.
Jackie Chan's actually in Enter the Dragon. He's only an extra and Bruce Lee kills him very quickly, but he's actually in Enter the Dragon.
I am now 10 times more convinced to see Enter the Dragon because Jackie Chan is an extra who gets killed by Bruce Lee. That is incredible. Oh!
Yeah.
I love this video already. This is so fun. Oh my gosh. Well, obviously, my number 3 is my number 3 because of Jackie Chan. Like, I think that was the dude I just really latched onto in the 90s. and it was my uncle Steve that introduced me to Jackie Chan, and he introduced him to me at like kind of a tough time in my life, so those Jackie Chan movies just became a really fun escape for me, and so I really got into them like crazy, and I feel like Rush Hour was probably his first super huge American movie. I could be wrong about that, because he had a couple other movies that kept building and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, so the movies he had released in the U.S. before Rush Hour weren't American movies. He did one called The Big Brawl, I believe, in 1980, and then he did a movie called The Protector in 1985, and they didn't do well. They didn't have his style, and so then Rush Hour was kind of the big. All right, so Rumble in the Bronx worked. All right, Operation Condor was profitable. Let's kind of pair him up with someone else and see if we can do something really special. And that's where Rush Hour like made a bunch of money, wildly successful. And not just to genre fans, just to people in general. It was like, Jackie Chan's amazing! And kicked off really the big level to the fame in the United States that he has now, not just to genre fans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's what I liked. I mean, it was a really great breakout movie for Jackie Chan, and Jackie Chan did not disappoint me in that movie at all whatsoever. Like, he didn't lose any of the stuff that made him Jackie Chan, and I think that's what also makes this movie so special, is I think he got the freedom to be himself. He got the freedom to do the type of fun martial arts fight scenes that he does.
Once again, they found a way to partner him with someone else to give him someone to play off of. And just makes the whole thing so watchable throughout, and it makes it much more watchable than a lot of other martial arts movies where, you know, it's not like it has a brilliant plot or something like that, but because it's played in a way that when they're not punching people in the face, you're laughing, there's things you're connecting with, it just makes it an incredibly watchable movie.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, love it. So what is your number two?
Number two, actually, my number one and number two, I cheated a little bit. So I crammed, because of the way I created my whole list was based around, all right, what's my one, either this style of martial art or this one actor, their kind of definitive one. So otherwise I would have had 10 Jackie Chan runner-ups in my list. But so coming in number two are going to be my Jackie Chan selections. My runner-up number two Jackie Chan selection is Drunken Master 2. In the United States, it was released as The Legend of the Drunken Master. It's actually called Drunken Master 2 is what it is. I owned it like 3-4 years before it came out in the US, because it came out 10 years before it came out in the US. But it was basically him kind of approaching the age of 40, and he's like, I'm going to do like the craziest, most complicated, choreographed, insane stuff I've ever done using this weird, unique, drunken boxing style. And the fights in it are just so smooth, fast, wonderful, just shot perfectly to show how impressive they are. And just everything about them so graceful. And he very much talks about how, in interviews, how there's like a rhythm to how he choreographs the scenes, and there's it's intended to be very dance-like, but they try and do it so many times that that removes kind of the feeling of steps, and any time that stuff just flows and smooth, and you just see this in it. And they talk like the final fight in this that they spent months choreographing and filming all of it, so it was absolutely perfect. So that's my number two pick, and tied very much so to similar sorts of compliments to this one. My number one, or Jackie Chan pick, which is number two, is going to be Police Story. So back in 1985, he had done The Protector, the movie that I just mentioned before, where he tried to make it big in the US. They do this movie called The Protector. They limit what he can do. They try and make it like a darker, grittier movie. It takes his humor out of it and the stunts, and just he hated it. So he went back to Hong Kong and he's like, I'm gonna make the crime police movie I want to make. And so he makes Police Story, and just the fights in it, the way they're choreographed, the way they're shot, the types of moves that he uses in it throughout the whole movie, the way it incorporates stunt work and the props like around him and stuff. A lot of that is heavily prevalent here. Incorporating big stunts into big action sequences all right here. The movie starts off with the sequence where like there's cars driving through a village and he's like riding on the outside of a bus using an umbrella to hold on to it while like fighting people on it.
That's Jackie Chan.
And just so many scenes, like when doing a fight scene in an apartment that's like 3 stories up, where just intentionally like the way it's handled, it's not like he kicks the guy into a wall. He kicks the guy out the window, and then the guy goes out the window and you see him fall down into a pool down below. And each of these little things, as it plays out, it's just so crafted perfectly to be like so exciting because you're seeing a real thing and you know it's Jackie Chan doing it. And you get to the end of the movie and it's a 10-minute long, I mean, I think it's actually like 9 minutes and 20 seconds or something, long fight scene of him in a shopping mall. And him trying to they're like have a girl and he's trying to track them down and just running through it. So everything that might happen in a mall where there's glass everywhere and he's just kicking guys through glass. He's grabbing like rolling racks and like spinning it over his head, using to pull the legs out from underneath people. And like, so that's like thing where he uses the spinning clothes rack. That's in the movie Rapid Fire as well. So when I referenced Rapid Fire and Brandon Lee copying Jackie Chan, like there's things that are in Rapid Fire that come very, very explicit, very clearly. It would be difficult to deny that he saw it in Police Story and went, let's bring that over to America. And so that's what you see in Rapid Fire. And then so this whole shopping mall fight scene, it's all intertwined with stuff where like Jackie Chan jumps from 3 stories up and grabs a pole and slides down 3 stories while there's lights on it that are popping in his hands, and they like were supposed to unplug it or something and they didn't, so he like got injured doing that. You know, he's kicking guys off the 2nd floor and they're falling down, and then he jumps down the escalator, and just whole thing incorporated with very, it's tougher than something like more brutal than say Rumble in the Bronx's fighting style, but still is gracious and with the fun and the props and stunts intertwined. So all the things that I love about Jackie Chan all in this one movie and the way he did fights in it. It's a really cool movie.
Well, my number 2 is Donnie Yen's Ip Man. Oh, that one was just such a good movie. And I watched this movie because one day I was on Netflix. I was tired of watching the same old reruns that I had always been watching. I wanted to watch something new and different. And I thought, Kung Fu. And there was Ip Man. And I thought, I've heard of this. Let me see what this is. That movie blew me away. I went in with absolutely no expectations. And that dude, Donnie Yen, is freaking amazing what he's able to do with that movie. It's just such a good movie where you have his character, Ip Man, is just the most successful master in their city. I mean, he's got the most students, and he's just awesome at what he does. And then Japan comes, and they occupy the city. And so he loses everything that he has. And so here he is, the wealthiest man, got the most students, and he's so highly respected, and now he's one of the poorest people, and they're scrounging to make a living just so that they can afford a potato for him, his wife, and his kid. And like, there's seriously a scene where he has this potato, and this is a big deal that he got a potato. But while he has this potato, he finds out there's this underground fight where they're pitting these Chinese fighters against these Japanese fighters, and really it's just another way for the Japanese to show we're superior and our martial arts are superior, everything is superior. And so Donnie Yen goes down there, and one of his friends gets killed in this fight, and he's there when he sees it. So in his rage, he comes out there, he sets his potato down on the mat, he looks up to, the soldiers that are in charge of the fight, and he requests 10 men, that 10 men fight him. So they bring in 10 of their best, and they stand there and they fight him. And if you watch the scene, it is absolutely brutal. But what is amazing is, it's 10 guys against this one. And maybe only once or twice in the fight do I watch a couple guys in the background waiting while one guy fights him, but there's a good chunk of the fight where he's taking on 3 people fighting him at the same time. And so it adds to the intensity of that fight and how cool it looks. And then it goes on from there where he starts to train his people so that they can fight, so that they can stand up for themselves, so that they're not just sheep being led to the slaughter. And then, culminating in I won't blow too much for you because you haven't seen it, but in the big fight with this major soldier dude who is a huge thorn in everybody's side, like the way that these fights are constructed, the way that the story flows, Ip Man is an amazing movie, and the fight scenes in it are just incredible. You need to see these movies.
Yeah, I don't have any sort of excuse. It just hasn't happened. There have been those ones I was like, oh, I really need to see those. I just haven't yet.
All right, Sean, what is your number 1?
All right, number 1. Once again, like my number 2 on the pick, it's more of an actor, and my favorite pick's for him. And that's going to be Tony Jaa with Ong Bak and The Protector. You haven't happened to seen these ones, have you?
I've seen Bak.
Okay, so it's a movie that came out right after he did Bak, so kind of very similar style, but he very much tried to expand upon what he did. And so, I mean, just the pure athleticism, the style of the fighting, just of the ability to kick with such precision while flipping in the air, the incorporation of stunts into fighting, much like with Jackie Chan. Since you've seen Bak, I'll kind of focus more on the Protector. But with the Protector, he tried to take a lot of this kind of to the next level. And what happens in the Protector is that he started focusing more on kind of doing longer take type shots. So you'd see this whole sequence that plays out that's a minute long, 2 minutes long, and then eventually there's a 5-minute long fight scene. So this is pretty common now, where they do a couple of these every year in movies where there's this extended single take fight scene. Well, Tony Jaa did it over 10 years ago, and it's them going up a staircase and on these different levels. And so the fight is him throwing guys 3 stories off a staircase and kicking people, doing flippy things and all sorts of this insane choreography. It's over 5 minutes long, going up the staircase, and maybe there's a couple places where there's probably a cut in it where you can see where, okay, when they went through that door, it looks like there was a cut there. But even so, like, there's only a couple places where there even possibly could have been a cut, and just placed throughout this whole thing. And likewise, like, there's an early scene in it where he's fighting some guys out in a train station, and they're for some reason a roller gang, and they're on like skateboards and stuff, and they're doing all this stuff, and it's just incredible what it is. There's a guy like chasing him on a dune buggy type thing, and he's flipping while runs up a wall, does a backflip while it drives underneath him. I mean, just such cool stuff. And then kind of to the idea of what you mentioned with Ip Man of just brutality, in the final sequence in this, like 30 guys charge in and storm him, and the way the sequence plays out, he's so angry about what has just transpired that he's just going to brutally destroy everyone. So everyone that comes in, he finds a different way to break their arms and legs. And it just, he walks in and just, like, they throw a punch at him, and he just weaves his arm in and goes, it snaps their arm, and they fall on the ground, and they're conscious. And so, like, at the end of the scene, there's just 30 bodies of people like, just moaning with their broken limbs. And it plays out each one of them just so you can see him go just all the way he twists and does stuff. And like, in interviews, we talked about how, because it's from Thailand, so it's his basic style would be Muay Thai, but how he studied historic versions of, and the predecessors to Muay Thai, to kind of get these different movements and brutalities and different things into it, the dances that worked into their culture, so that it portrayed the culture as well as the martial arts, as well as doing something new, brutal, and different. And you just watch the stuff in this one, and just his pure athleticism, what he can do, and the amount of just thought and art that went into how he did it and what he portrayed, and him being a huge fan of Jackie Chan, so it has these wide shots where you can see it, and so gracefully and beautifully done. And so whenever I saw The Protector for the first time in the theater, I was like, what am I seeing? Went out and got Bak that night, rented it, and watched it. I was like, this is incredible. This guy's amazing. And then he kind of went crazy for 10 years and wasted the prime of his life. And now he's trying to make a transition over into Hollywood, which he should have done 10 years ago.
Well, my number one is going to be Jet Li's Fearless. Did you happen to see Fearless?
I have seen Fearless.
I think the reason that this makes it my number one, it's kind of like what I said earlier, is there's something about transformation stories that I really, really like. So you watch the beginning of this, and Jet Li's character, he's just fighting to be the best fighter. He doesn't understand, like, his dad is a champion fighter and things like that, but why does his dad always hold back the last punch? Why does his dad show this weakness of mercy? And so, like, he has that in his head. He rejects the lessons, and what he wants to do is he wants to go out there and he wants to conquer. He wants to be the absolute best. And however, those fight scenes where you're watching him fight and you're watching him become the champion, you're watching him just be the best fighter and gain more and more students and disciples and things like that, all of those fight scenes are absolutely incredible. I love to watch Jet Li fight. The other thing that's interesting about this movie is I'm not a fan of the wire martial arts fighting, and and Fearless doesn't have a ton of that, but it definitely has some things in the first half of this movie that have that kind of feel where it's like, can he really balance himself like that? Can he really throw him? Like, there's a couple moments where I feel like it's a wire fight, but what I like about this movie is when you get to the second half of the movie where he goes through his cleansing, where he gets humbled, and he begins to, like, understand the purpose of life. He begins to understand the purpose of the martial art. And when he goes to fight by the end of this movie, I feel like it feels totally real to me. It feels like now, like, since the tone of the movie changed from him being, I have to be the best, so there's a little bit more wire fighting, then you get to the end of the movie, and now he's fighting for his people to show that they're not just weak and their traditions aren't weak and stupid. He's fighting for his people to show, no, we are strong and we have strength. Like, he's fighting for something noble now. It suddenly feels like the fights are a bit more grounded, and there's a lot less of that wire-type fight feeling. And so I actually ended up liking what they did in the first half because I liked how they transitioned it into the second half. It's like, I guess that makes sense. Like, he's all high on himself over here, and then over here, it's like he's down to earth, and this is like fighting for what's real. And so things like that, I enjoyed that transition. And then, of course, on the shallow end of things, just the freaking fight scenes, man. Holy freaking cow, that guy can fight. And every fight scene he does, especially in the end when he's in that competition and it was unfairly stacked, and he fights against the boxer, and he fights against the fencer, and he fights against, like, all these different people of different styles, but to watch him hold his own in each fight and conquer, it's like, it's incredible.
For the reasons you kind of mentioned with the wire fu and all that stuff, I've never been into that at all, so that's why I don't have any Jet Li on my list. And he's done some things I've enjoyed, but the wire fu thing on the wires and not my thing at all.
I think that's why I like his fight in Lethal Weapon 4, because it's just awesome to see him move so fast and zero wire fighting.
Yep.
I just like the way it was used in this one, in Fearless, because it just felt like, well, this is where he's full of himself, and this is where he's humbled, and this is where he's grounded again. So that is Sean Chandler's and my top 3 martial arts movies, along with our awesome list of honorable mentions. So what would your top 3 martial arts movies be? Please make sure to let us know of that in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click that bell so you're notified the moment I drop new videos, and go over to Sean Chandler's channel. And Sean, tell us where we could find your channel.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Chandler Talks About. Put out new content almost every single day, and yeah, I would love to get to know you in the comment section, so please join me over there, subscribe, like, and of course, comment so we can talk.
Yeah, so go over there and hit the subscribe button on his channel. It is an awesome channel, and I'm hoping we got some great videos together here in the future and some really cool things we're gonna do here later on down the road as well. So, exciting things on the way, so hit those subscribe buttons. I'm Durbin. This is Sean Chandler.
It's me.
Thank you for checking out Durbania.